going to be bad. I said, okay. Because you're finding now more and more people are not, and this is the big mistake that folks are making. They're not telling folks that you're not inoculated. You're mitigated from going to the hospital. More and more, that's not true. So, just trying to help people to see is a lot. It is a lot. So, it is a lot. But here we go. Okay. First reading. Glad and ever great now. Incident involving deficit and a freight movement in south and both directions. Traffic on the Mississippi West line. There are some delays on the South 4 line this morning. Westbound, freight 102 and a collision. Chicago's West Side Damon remains shut down. After a crash. The outbound Kennedy still has a closure for Cumberland traffic for south. Crash involving a vehicle and a work truck. Outbound traffic is diverted off at Canfield. Inbound traffic flows without significant delay. I'm Alabama. John Hartman. This is like a bizarre parody of Seinfeld. Now the Republican Party's about nothing. Nothing about getting the lead out of our water supplier, the child brain damaging pesticides out of our food. Nothing about strengthening Social Security or expanding Medicare to include glasses or hearing or teeth. Nothing about helping young families make it through those first 5 years with something like low-cost pre-K. The John Hartman radio program. Weekdays 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on WCPT 820. We're back to matter. The cars we currently have on the lot, from the car board, you probably heard about the crazy shortage of car dealers, and all because of the semiconductor chip inside the core. Tens of thousands of vehicles are languishing in the factory parking lot. Okay, thank you. These are cars, trucks, SUVs are the only thing we're relying on. Laptops, notebooks, cell phones, everything we use every day relies on there's a backup for so what does this all mean for us? All right. 30. And we'll take a big deal. Stop on the store for 150 Okay, you'll text me when you have the doctor on. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great show. Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Friday, everybody, May 6th, 2022. I'm Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today on the brink of Mother's Day, everybody. Mother's Day to all of the mothers who have fruit born of their womb, fruit born of their spirits, to women who nurture. God bless. Nothing like your mama. Nothing like your mama. I dedicate the show to my mother today and to all of your mothers. Indeed, let's say I'm Jacqueline Jackson's daughter today. How about that? How about that, everybody? And you do know that Mother's Day originally was designed, it was called Mother's Day for Peace. And I'm going to be talking about that, weaving that throughout the show. It was an appeal to womanhood throughout the world. Julia Ward Howe, who wrote the lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner, was a pacifist. She was an abolitionist. She was a feminist. She was a suffragist. She was a woman way ahead of her time. Well, not a woman ahead of her time, a woman trying to point us to a new time. And after the carnage of the Civil War, in which mothers on both sides took care of soldiers on both sides, she had a reaction. She appealed to womanhood, she said, throughout the world.
It was a Mother's Day proclamation. She appealed to women crossing all racial, social, political, ethnic lines. And she said, we must arise and end all war. I cannot teach my child to be a Christian and then send them off to war to learn to kill someone, to unlearn everything I taught them. Oh, this woman wrote this in 1870. So let's think about that as we look at Mother's Day, as we find ourselves not just in the midst of a war, but many wars. And not just a war in Ukraine and wars in Yemen and on and on and on, wars within our homes. Let us seek peace, everybody. Let us seek peace. Ann Spencer, peace. That's right. Amen to that. Andre and Linda and Samantha and Linear Bob and everybody on the Santita Jackson Show. Hey, Deborah. Hey, Jan. Everyone, I want you to meet me at WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Of course, WCPT is based here in Chicago. And my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. That is my official page. Everybody, please meet me there. That is the page where I can accept friends. And I want you to be my friend because I'm really trying to be yours. And I want you to meet me on my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. In fact, watch us over there. Please, they're told us, Facebook sent me a note and said that they want you to get on over to YouTube. So please do that, everybody. What are we going to be talking about today? Brittany Griner. It's a woman's issue in many respects because many of the top WNBA players, in order to make the money that they can make at the peak of their physical condition, they have to work a second season, like women have to do, and so that's why she was in Russia. If she made the kind of money that her superstar status really says that she should make, she wouldn't have to go play a second season. But we're trying to find out what has changed. The State Department has said that she's being held unfairly. So, what does that mean? What does that mean? How do the tactics change, particularly when we are basically in a war with Russia? It's a proxy war, but it is that. We're going to be talking about that at the bottom of the hour. It turns out that we've been giving, our government, our military have been giving the Ukrainian army and their military uh, coordinates and intel, which has allowed them to make some really a tremendous impact upon the Russian military. Um, does that pull us into the war? And we have, of course, a lot of military for people who used to be in the military who are over there fighting. They're being paid to fight. But that having been said, what is going on and where are we heading with this? As you listen to Lula da Silva, the former president of Brazil, who was jailed politically, who is popular enough to become president again. Indeed, many people are saying that he will become president again. He's saying that, you know what, Zelensky is as responsible for this war as Putin. Wow. He said because he could have negotiated his way out of this. Wow. And it's just, there's so much that is being said. But the global South, that is, people of color, have a different take on this. And I've been telling you all that since the beginning of this conflict. God bless us all. Everybody in Chicago, if you look outside, it is raining and it's supposed to rain all day. 49 degrees will be our high. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 70 degrees will be our high, and it'll be a beautiful sunny day up there. I'm so happy for you. Lost more than 1,000 points on the Dow yesterday, everybody. The worst day of the year. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. What does that mean for our 401ks? The Nasdaq closed down 647 points. The S&P 500 closed down 153 points. What is going on, everybody? In the NBA, we're in the playoffs. Miami leads their series 2-0. They will be playing the 76ers tonight. And Phoenix leads their series 2-0. They'll be playing the Mavericks tonight. Everybody in Major League Baseball, the White Sox will be facing off against the Red Sox today, and the Dodgers will be here facing off against the Cubs. Yesterday, well, the Twins fell to the Orioles. Orioles 5, Twins 3. In the NHL, well, they're in the playoff season too. This is that time of year where everybody's playing, right? This is great. Everybody except football. And the Stars and the Flames are tied in their series. The Stars tied it up last night, 2-0 over the Flames. Colorado, they are 2-0 up on the Predators in their series. And then, of course, the Panthers and the Capitals are tied. But the Panthers did win yesterday, 5-1. Mother's Day, Mother's Day, Mother's Day. What are you going to get for your moms? What do you think of your mom? Everybody call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Ironically, as we're talking about Roe v. Wade. Indeed, um, one of the leaders of the progressive movement in the United States, Senator Elizabeth Warren, said we cannot let the filibuster stand in our way. Abolishing the filibuster is not a radical idea, according to Public Citizen. And Senator Warren said on Thursday that Democrats cannot allow this filibuster to obstruct a largely needed action on abortion rights. What do you think about that? She said it's just past time. We're going to have to put in a law, she is saying, to save Roe v. Wade nationally. What do you think about that? As students are protesting all over the country. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We're going to be looking at the fact that the U.S. provided intelligence to Ukraine that helped sink Russia's prized warship in the Black Sea last month, killing hundreds, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278. The FDA has announced that it is putting strict limits on the J&J COVID-19 vaccine. Specifically, the vaccine will be limited to people 18 and older for whom other vaccines aren't appropriate or accessible. There are a lot of reports of blood clots. That is why they are limiting the use. So we're going to be talking about that, everybody. In the meantime, Moderna just got another $300 million from the American taxpayer. While they're hoarding the vaccine recipe, they won't share it with anybody. What do you think about that, everybody? 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. And as the immigration issue continues to surge in the United States, as we're allowing in 100,000 Ukrainians and holding back Haitians and other people of color, Guatemalans and Ecuadorians, and on and on and on. At the southern border, we don't pay attention to the northern border. The greatest number of visa overstays in the United States are from Canada. Well, states at the southern U.S. border are preparing for the expected influx of migrants seeking asylum after the end of Title 42. But don't worry, Governor Abbott in Texas is getting prepared too, because guess what? He is going to challenge the 1982 ruling requiring free public education. That's right. If you think that Roe v. Wade is where everyone's stopping, be very, very clear. And they are while he's looking at undocumented children and young children of immigrant parents, guess what? That means other people too. We will see. Trust me, you will see. 773-763-9278. Yeah, you heard it right. He's looking at restricting access to public education. In other words, he wants to end equal access to equal high quality education for all of our children. And these are all our children. Black, brown, yellow, red, white, rich, poor. They're our children. So, Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, I'm so glad you're back. I missed you. Oh, hey, girl.
Hey, I missed you all too. Thank you so much for having me.
Always. Well, you know what? We're glad you're back, and we're glad that you're going to give us some good news.
I am, prayerfully. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing great today. Happy Mother's Day in advance to all of the mothers, all of the mother figures, all of the moms in spirit and in work and deed. And I want to honor mothers today by talking about one who is rarely highlighted as a mother in the Bible, by a woman by the name of Vashti. And Vashti has a wonderful story. If you know the story of Esther, then you know that Queen Vashti preceded her. And here's what she did. The text tells us that Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command conveyed by the eunuchs. And at this, the king was enraged and his anger burned within him. Let me give you a bit of background. King Xerxes decided that he wanted to honor himself with 180 days of showcasing his kingdom and his wealth and his majesty for all of the people who are important and not important in the kingdom, the high-end people, the upper echelon, and the common folk. And he spent 180 days, 6 months doing that. And at the end of this 180 days, he also decided to tag on 7 more days of pardoning for everyone living in the capital, and the party was in his garden courtyard in his summer home. I want you to pay close attention to this, because this is where we see a shift. Whenever there's a garden in the Bible, it's indicative of a change, a shift, or a dramatic theme. The Garden of Eden, the Garden of Gethsemane, the Garden of Golgotha. And when we think about gardens, we often think about them being calm and serene, but you never consider that everything in a garden is fighting for its life to stay alive. And so when we see this garden scene here, right, once the spirits are high, everyone has been drinking, all of the men have been consuming alcohol, everybody is high and merry. And it was at that moment that he decides to send his personal servant to bring Queen Vashti, resplendent in all her glory, down to parade her beauty in front of all of the men. Now, keep in mind that when I say crown, he wanted her to come in her crown and only her crown. But Queen Vashti refused to come. And I love this about her, because what most people don't know is Queen Vashti was a mother. And when we consider her being a mother, I'm thinking she's thinking to herself, what could this do to my children if I did something like this? How would they suffer from this reputation? I don't know about you, but Kim Kardashian comes to mind as her son recently brings her a video that made her famous, but quite possibly may have mortified her in the eyes of her son. And keep in mind now who he sends to bring Queen Vashti down. The text tells us he sends the eunuchs. He sends the eunuchs to go and get her. Isn't it interesting to get her and give her a message and tell her to come down and parade her body? I think the timing of this is rather ironic, consider we are still dealing with men trying to govern women's bodies today. He didn't have the decency to even come make the request himself, but rather send a group of men to determine what she would do. I'm saying today that Vashti didn't just say no, she said nah. And maybe, Santita, that's a phrase that's maybe a little too Brooklyn for Chicago today, but there's a difference between saying no and saying nah. No is negotiable. Nah ain't negotiable. When you say nah to something, it's more than just a word. It's a phrase. It's a posture. And when I think about Vashti, I think about all the women throughout our history and throughout our world that had the courage to say nah. In the face of slavery, Harriet Tubman said nah. In the face of discrimination on the bus, Rosa Parks said nah. Sojourner Truth said nah. We see Michelle Obama saying nah. We see Elizabeth Warren right now saying nah. And that is exactly what these men were afraid of. That if Vashti had the courage to step up and say nah, then she would empower a whole lot of other women to do the same thing. So today I'm dedicating this to all the mothers, all the women who are not afraid to say nah. In the face of gender inequality, say nah today. When you get to your job and you realize that the white men are making more than you as a black woman, say nah. Refuse to tolerate it. As a mother, when you're tired and you've done everything else for everybody, don't be afraid to make a decision that's best for you. Say nah. I want somebody to have a nah in their spirit, to say, I'm so self-aware, I know who I am. I am a queen, I am the cream of the crop, and I will not let you drag me from my throne room to a garden bench. And so if you know who you are today, who you are in your heart, in your spirit, in your soul, and who God called you to be, don't be afraid today to say, nah. And that's the good news.
That is the good news, because that's what a mama does. She says nah to your mess. My mother said, no, in time you're going to see I am your best friend, but I am not your running buddy. That is not what I do. I tell you no. And she said, and if I'm the only person in the world who says no and models for you what a human being is supposed to be, she said, so be it. That's my role. Amen. So be it. And as Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman used to say, and so it is. Had to say her name so she can continue to live, and so it is. Nah, I love it. That's not too Brooklyn. That's South Side. That's West Side. I love it. That's Compton. I love it. That's real. Come on, that's real. That's also Appalachia. Yeah, that's real. That's real. That's right. We're going to put everybody in this. At some point, everybody says, no. Like Reverend, I'm about to.
are always falling on the sword
That's right.
and doing what's best for everyone else.
That's right.
But sometimes you have to say, no, I'm doing this just for me. There's no great movement attached to this. There's no other group of people who are going to benefit from this. The only person that's going to benefit from this is me, and that's okay.
But you know what? Your children benefit. And this is why the book of Ezekiel, you're more the expert than I, says, as is a mother, so goes the child. You got to be very careful, ladies. Women, God made us last. We don't have a missing rib, men do. God was done creating after he finished with us. So you got to be careful how you appear to your children, to bring up the example of Kim Kardashian, and God bless that family. We don't know what that did to her son to see her in that position. And she knows that now as a mother. She is reported to have called her ex-husband and said, well, what am I going to do? Ladies, you got to think about those things when you're doing or when you're about to. And I'm not condemning anyone. I'm just saying we got to think and we got to understand our true role. I can't wait for you to come back. How can we get your book? I see you, sis.
I see this is available on Amazon. I see this Inspirations from Heroic Women of the Bible, hidden in plain sight. It is available on Amazon.
I see you, sis. Everybody get it. I see you, sis. And you know what? I'm going to keep Dr. Shanita Knight, who I was about to make a minister just a few minutes ago. I'm going to keep her on for a couple minutes on the other side of the break. But I know she was moved by this, saying nah, because this is a sister who always says nah to the madness. Infection preventionist, registered nurse, clinical research scholar at Case Western Reserve University, a professor there. She just does it all. And she's a wife and a mom. Happy Mother's Day, Dr. Knighton. How are you?
I'm pretty good. Thank you so much.
Oh,
can't complain.
All right. You know, we have been finding out more and more about these vaccines as we go along, and we see now that the use of the J&J vaccine is being restricted because there have been evidence of blood clots. Let me ask you this, but not eliminated, but just restricted. As we see, Moderna is getting $300 million more from the American taxpayer, while they're refusing to share the vaccine recipe with the rest of the world. Unbelievable. The taxpayer paid for it, paid for the research, and we're still paying them more money. It's unbelievable. What should we, if you think that you are having some kind of complication that you think might be related to the vaccine, because clearly people did report blood clots and things like that. And you know, with every medication you take, including aspirin, everybody, whatever, Tylenol, whatever it is that you take, you got to read the fine print. That's what Dr. Knighton has been telling us, because there's always a kickback or the risk of a kickback with anything. So what should people, is there a process for, should you tell your doctor? How does this work if you think that you've had any kind of reaction to the vaccine?
So I was going to say, if you're having a reaction, then yes, your primary should be the first course of action that you take. If you end up taking it at a clinic that's not attached to your primary, then you should be going to even, there's a number typically comes with the information to where you can report it directly to the pharmaceutical company. So they'll give you a sheet of paper for where you can report the symptoms. CDC has information too. There's also the vaccine adverse effects reporting system, where a physician or yourself or your provider can fill that out and let them know what has happened. And so the CDC actually has a mechanism called eSafe to counteract it as well.
Is there, but sometimes, does this require that we really, really, really know our bodies so that we can know whether it's the vaccine, it could be us, something could be enhanced? We don't know. You have continued to drill into all of us, watching what we eat, making sure that we exercise and really begin to take care of our bodies. Dr. Knight, I've got about 90 seconds.
Yes, the problem is, in full transparency, I've talked to people, and people have told me that, long story short, their primary care provider or those around them, when they say that they don't understand what it is that they're experiencing, or they feel like their body is feeling different, then they've been gaslit. They've been told, no, that is not what you're feeling. No, that is not from the vaccine. And so a lot of the hesitancy that people have had with even reporting is that they're being talked out of their real experience of what they're having. And yes, it could be some sort of minor side effect that ends up going away, but it's like still at the end of the day, the fact that we're not able to have that open dialogue and conversation where people feel comfortable enough to report it is very concerning.
Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody. Dr. Shanina Knighton telling us about what it is that we need to be looking at. We need to look at the totality of our bodies, and we need to become the best advocates for our bodies and for ourselves that we can be. Don't let the doctor push you back against the wall. Push back against the doctor and let them know, no, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm feeling. And stand in that. Stand in that truth. Stand in that truth. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to you, Dr. Shanina Knighton. Stay right here because we're going to be talking about war and peace. Indeed, the original idea behind this holiday was for it to be Mother's Day for peace. Julia Ward Howe in 1870 called upon all mothers all around the world to declare a war on war and to end war for all time and to declare peace after the carnage of the Civil War in the United States. Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show as we look at Ukraine. Are we in a proxy war with Russia, the United States? Let's talk about it. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Dr. Knighton? Ooh. Yes, we got preached this morning. Women saying, nah, I love that. I love it. Is there anything you want to add on the other side of the break? Oh, okay. Do you want to listen to what we're going to be talking about with Ukraine? Oh, 1870. Well, it's interesting. I'll send it to you. It's Mother's Day Proclamation, Mother's Day for Peace. Julia Ward Howe she was an abolitionist. She was a suffragist. She was a feminist. She was a woman who was really, really, thank you. Dr. David Gibbs, how are you? And happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. And I'm saying happy Mother's Day to everybody because we all have moms. But I was sharing with Dr. Shanina Knighton, the infection preventionist from Case Western Reserve University, that this was originally, you may or may not be aware, this was originally Mother's Day for Peace. And Julia Ward Howe issued a Mother's Day proclamation declaring, calling upon all women across all racial and ethnic and economic boundaries all around the world to work toward peace. Work toward peace. And this was in the aftermath of, hey, Bryce Green. Oh, I am hanging in here. This was in the aftermath of the Civil War, which of course we have not gotten over today because it was just so awful. But that having been said, she wanted women to arise, as she said, arise. And she didn't want our children to unlearn all of the Christian ethics that we had taught them. She said, I can't teach my child the 10 Commandments and then send them out. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we've been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. Because the numbers on how many people were killed in the Civil War in the United States continue to go up. We were raised on 600,000. Now the numbers approach 800,000. And I'm sure the numbers will go up from there as science continues to be refined and we find out just how many people we lost. So anyway, I know you all have got to be interested in the man who's on the cover of Time magazine this week, soon to be hopefully president of Brazil. Interestingly enough, David, Lula da Silva had Reverend come and campaign with him in the final weeks of his campaign in his successful bid for the presidency a few years ago. Because there's an awakening of the Afro-Brazilian population. And because of Reverend's global stature, he felt that he would inspire the Afro-Brazilian community and the progressive community to get out and vote. And so there you have it. So I've always had and he is still the most popular politician in Brazil. An iconic labor leader. And he, you heard what he said in the Time magazine article. He feels that Zelensky is as responsible as Putin for this. He said he should have negotiated his way out of this. Wow. And so but that he's reflecting the thoughts of the global South, which is most of the world, at least, a third of it. So it's interesting, but I want to find out from what you think about these all this intelligence that we're using, that we're giving to the Ukrainians, and what that means. Oh, you all going to have fun today. Stand by.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Oh, and hate, no place for others not to wait. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, Carol from New York City, and Carissa, and Ann, and Meddy, and Barbara Bacon from Oak Park, Mark from DC, Joyce Anderson, Tevin Smith from Greenville. I love it. I love it. I love it. Barbara Bacon, my father's hometown. My brother Jesse was born down there as well. Khalifa, how you doing, sweetie? Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Happy Mother's Day for peace. That's what we're celebrating. That's the original idea of this holiday. Coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I am Santita Jackson. And we're going to be talking about Ukraine before we get into Brittany Griner at the top of the hour. U.S. intelligence helping Ukraine kill Russian generals. This is according to a news report from The Guardian, and in fact, it's being reported all over the world. U.S. officials have reportedly confirmed that they are providing intelligence that help Ukrainian forces to target and kill many of the Russian generals who have died in the Ukraine war. This, of course, was made originally. This claim was made originally in the New York Times. And so they were, of course, quoting unnamed, anonymous officials. But what do you think about this? Does this mean that we are in a proxy war, that we are at war with Russia already? What does this mean? Where is this going? And is this the right thing to do? Is it the ethical thing to do? Is it the legal thing to do? I mean, we've got, of course, Bryce Green, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, and Dr. David Gibbs, Professor of History at the University of Arizona, of course, one of the world's foremost experts on politics and the actions in this particular region. And so, Dr. Gibbs, help us to understand U.S. intelligence helping Ukraine. What does that mean? And what does it mean?
Well, reports indicate what I think has been suspected all along, is the United States has tremendously increased the striking ability of Ukrainian armed forces by giving real-time intelligence from America's vast array of intelligence gathering satellites and other means, presumably. And they've used that, according to recent reports, to kill Russian generals. Another report to help shoot down troop transports killing hundreds of Russian troops, and to help target the flagship of the Black Sea, the Moskva, sunk recently. It's a little bit of caution should be noted that we can't independently verify any of this. This is all coming from U.S. intelligence sources, they may be boasting or overstating, but overall, what we're seeing here is most likely extremely dangerous escalation of the war. I studied the Cold War very extensively, and there's never been anything like this in terms of the willingness of American officials, both military and civilian, to risk nuclear war with Russia. We never have come this close before. I don't even think during the Cuban Missile Crisis anything was done that was anywhere near as reckless as during the Reagan administration. Nothing like this comes to mind, not in this scale. And so this flirtation with nuclear war here that is really quite extraordinary and quite disregarding of global security and what nuclear war means. I almost wonder if American officials in the last 30 years have forgotten what is meant by nuclear war, what the implications of that would be. And so I think this is very worrying to me.
Well, what are the implications of nuclear war? Because nuclear war is never, just physically, it's never in isolation. The chemical residue impacts the whole world. And not to mention the physical, not just the political implications. What is nuclear war? Number one, because for many of us, it is academic. What is nuclear war? What would happen to us if any portion of the human race had nuclear war visited upon them? Dr. Gibbs.
Well, full-scale nuclear war, and that's the real danger here. That's the very real possibility at this time. Would involve the exchange of thousands of nuclear warheads, both primarily by missile, maybe by bomber, launched from both silos on land as well as submarines at sea, by both sides against each other, wiping out vast amounts of urban infrastructure, destroying entire cities with a single bomb, irradiating vast areas that beyond the immediate level of destruction, killing hundreds of millions within hours. That's nuclear war. The longer-term implications would be, putting debris up into the upper atmosphere that would block sunlight, reduce or eliminate the possibility of photosynthesis, and then producing a vast, what's called nuclear winter, that would essentially shut down global food production. That's what we're talking about here, very possibly the entire extinction of the human race and of all higher life on the planet. That is not far-fetched at all. That is a probable outcome of a large nuclear exchange, and that is exactly the danger we are facing right now. That is exactly what American foreign policy is courting at this present time.
Bryce Green, U.S. intelligence, helping Ukraine kill generals. And, we took out a lot of people. Ukraine, shall I say, really in their military maneuvers, allegedly, if these reports are to be considered true, a lot of people died, not just Russian generals, but hundreds of soldiers. Why don't you speak to that?
Right. What David Gibbs said about being cautious about whether or not this is true or not, that's an important point. But even if it's not, and they're just boasting, this represents a direct escalation. If they're leaking this to the press, they want people to know that or at least to believe that the United States intelligence is helping the Ukrainian army in some significant way. And like he said, that's courting nuclear war. Vladimir Putin has issued repeated warnings about Western NATO countries being involved in this war. He said that it could result in unintended consequences. But it seems to be the United States is courting these consequences as a strategy of escalation and, in their own words, designed to weaken Russia. And this has been the strategy for a long time. Going back to the end of the Cold War, the U.S. has long since tried to wrest Ukraine from the Russian sphere of influence, knowing that it could provoke a violent offense, knowing that violence might overextend and destabilize Russia. And so that seems to be the goal right now. In fact, there was just a report, I think yesterday or the day before,
that as talks were going on in Istanbul in April, early April, the U.S. partner, the UK, sent Boris Johnson down to Ukraine with two messages. One, that Ukraine should not negotiate with Vladimir Putin because he's a war criminal. He should be pressured, not talked to. And secondly, that even if Ukraine was ready to make a deal with Russia, the West was not. And so that seems to solidify. This was reported in Ukrainian Pravda. It was translated to English by some other outlets. But if this is true, this solidifies what some of us have been saying for a long time, that the U.S. has no interest in resolving this war peacefully, and in fact has the opposite interest in expanding the war, in pouring billions of dollars of weapons into the conflict, and to try and use this as a proxy war against Russia. And this is being, the Guardian's writing about it, the New Yorker is saying this. Even the Pope came out and said that this war is to some degree NATO's responsibility. And for this, he was called a conspiracy theorist. But that seems to be where the facts are going these days. That seems to be exactly what the United States has been courting for a long time. And this is a very dangerous state of affairs. It could lead to, like we just discussed, nuclear war, which would be game over for human civilization. That's risking omnicide, the death of everything. Plant life, animal life, anything but microorganisms. And apparently that's worth risking to these people in Washington to fulfill their geopolitical objectives, and that's very troubling for me.
What is a geopolitical agenda? I mean, who is advantaged by the advancing of war? Even President Zelensky said, look, you don't shoot your way out of war, you have to negotiate your way out of war. Now you've got Brazil, Lula da Silva, someone who is, many people feel will become the next president of Brazil. He's the most popular politician in Brazil and one of the most powerful countries in this hemisphere. He's on the cover of Time magazine this week. He said, quote, I see the president of Ukraine speaking on television, being applauded, getting a standing ovation by all the European parliamentarians. He said, this guy is as responsible as Putin for the war, because in the war, there's not just one person guilty. The U.S. has a lot of political clout, and Biden could have avoided war, not incited it. Biden could have taken a plane to Moscow to talk to Putin. This is the kind of attitude you expect from a leader. He said now that Putin shouldn't have invaded Ukraine. He said, but it's not just him who's guilty. The U.S. and the European Union are guilty. Wow. That's loaded. How many, first you, Bryce, and then you, Dr. Gibbs. I want you to, what do you think of that?
Well, to your question of the geopolitical objectives, I take my cues from, there was a great article, or not great, but it was an insightful article in the Wall Street Journal at the end of December. And if you recall, in December, this was at a time where the United States was raising the alarm about an impending Russian invasion. You had seen Russian troop buildups on Ukraine's borders, and U.S. intelligence agencies were warning of an imminent invasion. All the while, Putin was calling for negotiation. He was calling for the U.S., Ukraine, and other European countries to join in creating a comprehensive European security arrangement, something that would result in a halt to the expansion of NATO and a removal from missiles on his border that were, 5 minutes away from Moscow. But the U.S. refused to negotiate. And this article was written by a fellow at the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council, of course, being NATO's de facto think tank. A lot of policy prescriptions and analyses come out of there that is used by NATO. And this article was titled "The Strategic Case for Risking War in Ukraine." And it was about why the Biden administration should refuse to negotiate with Putin over NATO expansion, over missiles, over a security agreement. And his reasoning was twofold. One, there would be two possible outcomes if the U.S. refused to negotiate. One, that Putin would back down and would look weak and lose face on the world stage. And two, that if Putin did go to war, that would also be very good for the U.S. The first reason would be that it would strengthen NATO. It would strengthen the anti-Russian consensus around Europe, which is why NATO exists. And already you're seeing that come to fruition. You're seeing Germany, who was initially reluctant to get involved in this conflict, start sending weapons over. France just said they're sending weapons. The EU is about to vote on canceling all Russian gas exports. They're carving out a few exceptions. But all in all, NATO is definitely strengthening. Sweden and Finland are talking about joining NATO. All these countries are raising their military expenditures because of this. This is very good for NATO. This is very good for the U.S. because NATO serves to serve U.S. defense industry by buying U.S. weapons, by buying things to strengthen the U.S. military-industrial complex. So that was the first reason that war would be good. The second reason that war would be good was that it would give the U.S. an excuse to sanction the hell out of the Russian economy. At the root of all geopolitical conflict is the economic powers behind it. And Russia stands outside of the U.S.-dominated Western economic system and thus represents a challenge to it. A sanctions regime on Russia, which, as Biden said when he implemented it, was meant to deindustrialize Russia. Well, that would take a major competitor out of the conflict, out of the global economic chessboard. And so that would be good for the United States. And the third reason that they would be good for the United States was that if Russia did invade Ukraine, then it would be an opportunity to fund a massive insurgency, the same way they did in Afghanistan, in order to bog down the Russian troops and give them another Afghanistan or their own Vietnam. And this would overextend and destabilize Russia. And so all of these reasons were articulated in this article by a member of a NATO think tank. And so I think that that's a good first approximation at the understanding the Biden administration strategy. They want this war to continue. They want the Russians to get bogged down in there. They're willing to fight this war, as was said, to the last Ukrainian. And the Ukrainians are merely pawns in this whole conflict. Zelensky, it seems like he has less agency than his public appearances might seem to suggest. If negotiations in Istanbul were cut off, if that reporting is accurate, after the visit from Boris Johnson, then that means that Zelensky is indeed it's not a puppet highly influenced by the Western countries. And that this war will continue so long as the Western countries want it to. And it's our job as, Americans, people in these Western worlds, to call on our government to start negotiating, to start taking steps to de-escalate rather than escalate. And the first way to do that is to educate people.
I mean, is there, Dr. Gibbs, a peace process? I mean, I read about it intermittently, certainly in the Western press, that Turkey and Israel, among other countries, have been sitting down with Ukraine. But I'm not hearing anything about, really, in the Western press, certainly, I don't hear much, if anything at all, about a peace process, about what it would take to end this conflict. What would it take to end this conflict? And is there a peace process? If so, who is involved? Is anyone taking it seriously?
That's my knowledge. There really is no active or serious peace process going on at the present time. There was, but it was short-circuited several weeks ago in Istanbul and before that in Belarus. But at present, pretty much both sides seem to be bent on some kind of a military solution on the battlefield. The main issue as I would see it is the U.S. has never in any serious way endorsed any kind of peaceful settlement. The U.S. has done nothing even publicly to endorse any kind of peaceful settlement. And I think that that's really been a key factor, or certainly a very significant factor in presenting any kind of peaceful settlement. In terms of what could happen, most likely scenario would be Russia would very slowly but surely make gains. And then there would have to, at some point, be a kind of a partition of Ukraine. But I think partition is, in principle, a terrible idea. It's a violation of sovereignty. It sets precedents for changing borders in other countries, which are always problematic. Let me add, by the way, I started my career as an Africanist, and there was always a tremendous hesitancy in Africa to any kind of changing of borders because that would open up a sort of a can of worms that would simply lead to further conflict. So I don't like partition, but the fact is that is probably the only way this war can end without nuclear war. And so partition is the least bad of all the possible outcomes. And so I think some kind of partition of Ukraine, maybe with a plebiscite for people in places like Crimea and Donbass to see where they would like to go, would be one way this could end. And again, as bad as partition may be, it's far preferable to the alternative, which is continued war or a nuclear war. And so I think the likely endgame of this, when it comes, assuming it is nuclear war and global destruction, there's a real possibility here. The most likely scenario would be some kind of partition of Ukraine, with at the very least Crimea and the Donbass likely separating from Ukraine. I think all of this could have been avoided if NATO hadn't been expanding relentlessly and causing conflicts. I think that's exactly what was happening all along. NATO was a very destabilizing force, but at this time, we have no good solutions, only bad solutions and worse solutions. And probably the best outcome of this, in terms of the range of outcome, would be some kind of partition. Unfortunately, I think the United States seems to want victory, a defeat of Russia on the battlefield, possibly regime change in Moscow. Nancy Pelosi herself said about this aid is intended to decimate, that was the word she used, to decimate Russia. Well, that's a prescription for nuclear war. That scenario, if it's carried out to its logical conclusion, would mean nuclear war. And I think it is incumbent upon everybody to avoid that scenario.
Where would China be in all of this? I've got about 3 minutes left with you gentlemen. In about 90 seconds, Bryce Green, China. Some people are saying they're the wild card. Where do they fit in this?
Oh, well, China has more or less, it's not openly endorsed Russia's actions, passively endorsed them by telling them that they will continue sales of oil and other natural resources. They will not be complying with U.S. sanctions. And B, by just openly rebuffing the U.S. when they ask them to. China was repeatedly begged by the U.S. to be included in the sanctions. They were threatened with economic warfare if they didn't comply. I don't think the U.S. is following through with that. But China is the world's strongest economy, the fastest growing developed economy in the world, and it's soon to take over the U.S. largest economy. And if Russia has the backing of China, then the entire global chessboard has shifted. And the U.S. cannot really fight a proxy war against the economic systems of Russia and China. And you can also throw into that India, who has also rebuffed the U.S. calls to implement their sanctions. And they've also been threatened by the U.S. Immediately after India refused, you saw reports about concern for Indian human rights abuses from the State Department, because that's how they weaponize human rights. But overall, I think what the biggest development in this whole Ukraine conflict is just how much the rest of the world is not on the U.S. side. How much of the rest of the world, from Lula to Xi Jinping to most of the global South, is not on board with the U.S. Proxy war. They understand this as a NATO-instigated conflagration. They understand that what Russia did was bad, but they also see the U.S. role in pushing Russia to this point. And this is becoming clearer and clearer to people around the world. And so what you have is a crisis of legitimacy for the U.S. system in many parts of the world. And this comes at a time where China's system is rising, and where China's system is interacting with the international stage in a lot less predatory way. And so that's going to be the result of this war if we don't blow ourselves to smithereens. Well, the global chessboard will be forever rebalanced.
Dr. Gibbs, I've got about just under 90 seconds in a minute. China, just where are we going with this? What can we? I don't even know what to say. What to expect next, but what is going on here?
Viewpoint of Bryce that the global south is not with us on this. So the international community, is unanimous in supporting the United States. What the international community means is American allies in NATO and elsewhere. Outside of that international community, the world is not in support of this, including both notably China and India. And, much of Latin America, much of Africa are not supportive of what the United States is doing. What we do need, however, now is a peace movement in the United States. And we need people, including in Congress, to step up and have the courage to basically say what we are doing, what America is doing in Ukraine is spinning out of control and is becoming far too dangerous and too threatening to global security and needs to be reined in and stopped. We need an authentic peace movement. I haven't really had an authentic peace movement in 30 years. The anti-nuclear weapons movement has simply died and needs to be revived and revived very quickly if we as a species are going to survive this concept.
Everybody think about this. This is not fun and games. This is real. This is real. Nuclear war would not just impact one part of the world, it would impact us all. What did you call it? Omnicide? Yeah, everybody's lives would be threatened. And we are perilously close. Indeed, Nikita Khrushchev's great-granddaughter said, we're closer to nuclear war today than we were during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when my great-grandfather and John Kennedy negotiated their way out of that. That's why I keep bringing this up. Let's talk about Brittany Griner, everybody. Why is she still in Russia? And you're not gonna bully her out of there either. She's got a hearing on May 19th. We've got to talk about that. The State Department is now approaching this differently. They're saying that she's being unfairly detained. Let's talk about that on the Santita Jackson Show. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Stay right there. David Gibbs, are you still there? Bryce? Have you all left? Oh, darn it. You know what? If you would, just very quickly, because I've got to free up your line. But attorney Mehdi Rodriguez said Putin doesn't want a peace process unless Ukraine capitulates completely, giving up democratic government and their seaport, wealth, etc. There were negotiations, but Putin was not being genuine, instead wanting total surrender of Ukraine. Putin would have imposed a puppet president ruling over Ukraine via proxy. As an American, I would fight for freedom. Why don't you speak to Mehdi?
Well, first I would say that if you'll recall that this is similar to what, if you believe that Putin is trying to regime change Ukraine, this is similar to what the U.S. did to Ukraine in 2014 with the Maidan coup. We talk about this on this show. You can read my article or reporting on the subject. I won't go into major detail here, but the long and short of it is that the U.S. overthrew the government of Ukraine in 2014. And so if you care about freedom, I think you should be opposing the U.S. Secondly, the idea that Putin doesn't want a genuine peace process simply hasn't been tested yet. The negotiations were happening. Putin, immediately after the war started, Putin was open to negotiating. And it wasn't, and even Zelensky was open to negotiating. The only people who weren't open to that was the United States. And Russia had talked about its peace terms over and over again. They said that they would like a recognition of Crimea as Russian. They want a recognition of the Donbass Republic as independent. And they want a pledge not to join NATO. That is the broad strokes of their security concerns. Putin, there's no serious effort to actually implement them. Ukraine, Zelensky, he said that he wasn't willing to give up sovereignty over Crimea and wasn't willing to give up sovereignty over Donbass. And if you remember, these areas haven't been under Ukrainian control for 8 years, and Ukraine has never made any positive steps towards reintegrating them, towards implementing the peace accords that were in place after 2015. And so what you have is Putin asking for things, asking for Ukraine Ukraine to recognize facts on the ground, while Ukraine, likely at the behest of U.S. pressure, is refusing to even consider that. And so the fact is that if Putin was serious, we would never know because we haven't really tried. And the problem is we haven't really tried. And so what we want to do is get the U.S. to try.
Well, there you have it. There you have it. And to be clear on the real history here, Mehdi, I mean, because the fact is, and thank you so much, Bryce. Thank you for being with us. We're going to switch gears here so we can talk about Brittany Griner, because that's another issue, and she is in Russia. And we are not going to just roll up on Russia and tell Russia that she has got to be released. It's not going to work like that, y'all. Even as I'm getting a lot of calls from a lot of you reaching out to me, what is Reverend Jackson going to do? Can he go over there? You know what? Look, when Reverend Jackson has negotiated people out of these seemingly impossible situations, number one, he appreciates their humanity and approaches them respectfully. He does not approach them as an inferior. You can't do that. You know, you don't demand her release. You request her release. We need to know what the charges are. We need to know what she's facing on May 19th. Will she have adequate representation? Who is she talking to now? These are the things that we need to know. We need to know all of those things. So, but we did overthrow Ukraine's democratically elected government in 2014. We did that, Mehdi. We did that. And, you know, and I make these pleas because I want America to be right. You know, Dr. King, that's all Dr. King talked about. He said, I want America to be on in reality what it is on paper. You can't just continue to roll over people. And now you got China, which is ascendant, and the global chessboard, as many people are saying, is changing, is shifting. You fully have a third of the world who are not on board with this. That's China and India. That's 1 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion. That's like 2.5 to 2.7 billion people in the world who are saying no. And people and the Western powers are pushing back against India in particular. And they're like, I don't care. Because they got 1 billion plus people. They don't even need Hollywood, for example. They have Bollywood. They release films, scores of films every week. They have their own billionaires. They have their own superstars. They're not thinking about us. Y'all? Ooh. Daryl, you said it's praying time. Absolutely, it's praying time. It is praying time and it is marching time if you want peace. And ironically, we're talking about this on Mother's Day weekend, which was Mother's Day for Peace. That's the original idea of Mother's Day. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, how you doing? I'm doing great. Attorney Sanat, how are you? Always. You know we love having you, girl. And Attorney Jones, how are you? Well, bless your heart. It's cold and rainy here. How about that? So wanting. I've got to go pick up okay, that was okay. All right. Thank you, CK. Thank you. Mean. No, it wasn't. It's just mean girl, mean girl, mean girl. Oh man, but girl, look, I hope you're not wearing wool. I know you are dressed for it. Oh, because everybody, you all haven't seen CK. She is laying on full all the time. This girl can dress. She can do it. I love it. I wish it, well, I don't know if I wish it were 90 degrees here, but I wish it were not 49.
Right. No, but it's not really hot. So somewhere in between would be good.
No, girl, you know what? There's something about, oh my goodness, because I'm wearing summer clothes today. Yeah, I've never worn my summer and spring clothes so early. You know, honey, I'll wear the wool until it gets warm. But I just said, you know what? I'm just going to have to layer. Because I'm tired of the winter. Tired.
Coming back in 10 seconds.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. All right, everybody, let's have a great show. Let's talk about Brittany. Let's try and get this child home. How about that? Mm-hmm. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Happy Mother's Day for Peace weekend. That's right. That's the original idea of Mother's Day as instituted by Julia Ward Howe in 1870. And we're going to pick that mantle up right here on the Santita Jackson Show. I am Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you. Coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station based here in Chicago, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, sending everybody Chad Larson and Gary Hines and all of my people up in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Matt Sowell, sending you much love today, sweetie. He's always with us at first thing in the morning. Sending everybody much, much, much love, and all of the mothers at WCPT and at AM 950 Radio within the sound of our voices at the station and within our listening audience. May you have a blessed and peaceful and peace-seeking Mother's Day holiday. We're going to talk about that a little bit before we get out of here today. We're going to be talking about Brittany Griner. Brittany Griner, the United States has reclassified her case as one of being of wrongful detainment. What does that mean? What will that change the tack of the State Department? How is this all going to play out? Indeed, May 19th is when she has her hearing. Who is representing her? I mean, what is she really being charged with? Why is it taking so long? Why is it taking so long for her to be released? Can't wait to talk about that with attorneys C.K. Hoffler, Anastasi Sanat, and Daryl Jones. And you, call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Let's get some of these headlines out the way so we can get on with the show. In Chicago, it is already raining, everybody. We'll have a high of 49 degrees. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 70 degrees and sunny. The Dow closed down more than 1,000 points. The worst day of the year, everybody. Wow. The NASDAQ closed down 647 points. And the S&P 500 closed down 153 points. Wow. What does that mean for our 401ks? Wow. Fewer pension plans, more 401ks. Wow. That shifted. Wow. We'll be looking at that on the Santita Jackson Show. In the NBA, we're in the midst of the playoffs as we are in the NHL. The Miami team, they're up 2-0 over the Heat over the 76ers. They'll be playing tonight. Phoenix leads their series 2-0 as well. The Suns will be facing off with the Mavericks tonight. Wow. And in Major League Baseball, the White Sox will be playing the Red Sox today if the weather permits. And the Dodgers will be at the Cubs, everybody. The Twins last night, well, they fell to the Orioles. The Orioles 5, the Twins 3. In the Hockey League playoffs, the Stars shut out the Flames. That series is tied at 1 apiece. The Avalanche were triumphant over the Predators, 2-1. Colorado leads that series 2-0. And the Panthers, well, they beat the Capitals 5-1. Their series is tied at 1 apiece. Mother's Day proclamation, everybody. Let us take that seriously. It's an appeal to womanhood throughout the world for peace, everybody, founded by Julia Ward Howe. In 1870, she was a suffragist, she was an abolitionist, she was a feminist. She was so many things, and she also wrote the lyrics for the Star-Spangled Banner. She said, we want to have peace after this horror of the Civil War. All mothers of all races, of all ethnic groups on every continent need to come together and say no to war forevermore. God bless you, Julia Ward Howe. We're going to be reading excerpts from her poem, the Proclamation, Mother's Day Proclamation for Peace, at the end of the show. Elizabeth Warren says, we cannot let the filibuster stand in our way. There is a movement in the U.S. Senate to have to pass a law that would save Roe v. Wade, that would codify it. Do you think it's going to happen? She said, we can't let the filibuster stand in our way. Well, now it's the time for Murkowski and Collins and others to declare themselves. In the meantime, students and others are staging nationwide walkouts in protest of the anticipated Supreme Court decision. In the battle for Mariupol in Ukraine, the steel plant is creating a dire situation for civilians as the fierce combat continues. Many people are in urgent need of medical help and food, according to a UN spokesperson. We will see how that plays out, everybody. While hoarding the vaccine recipe, Moderna, everybody got another $300 million from U.S. taxpayers. Another $300 million. Do they deserve that? And guess what? CK, you'd be interested in this, as states at the southern U.S. border are preparing for an expected influx of migrants seeking asylum at the end of Title 42, the pandemic era border restriction put in place by the Trump administration, and it has continued. But the Biden administration is trying to end it. Well, guess what? Texas governor, GOP governor Gregory Abbott, is now considering challenging the 1982 ruling requiring free public education. He was in an interview with a right-wing pundit, and he discussed the burden that the children of undocumented immigrants place on communities, and maybe what we need to do is not allow them to go to school. Now, it's going to start with the children of undocumented workers, but it's going to end up with everybody else. Kids who don't perform well enough, who really need to get out and work for their families. It's just going to keep on going. When my brother, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., was in Congress, he crafted an amendment to the U.S. Constitution because he's a legal scholar in addition to being a lawyer. And he said, look, we have no federally protected right to an education, not just health care, but an education. No, that is not your right, everybody. That's something that has been granted to us. So he crafted an amendment to the Constitution guaranteeing equal access to equal high quality education for every child in these borders. I think we need that, everybody. Think about it. In the meantime, we are talking about financial freedom. We've been talking about that a lot. Indeed, I'm so excited. We're going to be bringing on Ariel Capital Investments as a sponsor to this show. Can't wait to have them on to talk to you about investing, even in these times. Investing. How do you invest? Where do you invest? Because all stocks are not tanking, everybody. But in the meantime, we've been working with Team Hochberg because many of you want to buy a home. It is not beyond your reach, even with these spiking rates. If you have poor credit, if you have no credit, if you need to rebuild your credit, if you have huge credit card debt, if you want to purchase a home, you can do it. If you want to refinance your existing home, you can do it. If you need to secure a VA loan, if you want to know about reverse mortgages, if you need one, you can get them. Even if other lenders have told you no, Team Hochberg can show you how to get to the yes. So call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com, 56david.com. All you have to do when you call 855-56-DAVID is speak to them. You have a free consultation. Tell them everything. They've heard it all. And they have worked through all kinds of problems with people, like Pete, who recently posted a 5-star Google review after saving over, guess what, $800 a month, everybody. That's almost $10,000 a year after completing a cash out refinance with the help of Team Hochberg. I mean, he wants to give a shout out to Mark Zinner. He said because he was very responsive, and they will not talk down to you. They will not tell you that it's impossible. They will find a way to get you out of debt, everybody. They have over 200 5-star reviews. Just type in Team Hochberg. You can find out for yourself. So I want you to call in and get that and talk to them. Get that free overview. Just tell them what you're going through so that you can get to that yes. You can get your money. You can get your house. You can save your home. Call them at 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. I want you to be financially free, everybody. That's the American dream. Everybody, the U.S. has reclassified WNBA star Brittany Griner as wrongfully detained. The State Department said the following: the welfare and safety of U.S. citizens abroad is among the highest of the U.S. government. The Department of State has determined that the Russian Federation has wrongfully detained U.S. citizen Brittany Griner. The U.S. government will continue to undertake efforts to provide appropriate support to Ms. Griner. Okay, what has changed, everybody, and what does this statement mean? What does this statement mean? Officials and other sources close to her case declined to say what led to the shift or whether there have been any discussions about what it would take to secure her release. I mean, we need to know why exactly she's being detained and who is representing her. Are they able to see her? I mean, where are we with this? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We've got 3 of the leading experts in this space. Talking with us about this, of course, attorney C.K. Hoffler, past president of the National Bar Association, and chair of Rainbow Push. We've got the chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, brilliant civil rights lawyer, and of course, voting rights advocate, Attorney Darrell Jones. But I'm going to start with you, Attorney Anastasia Sanat. You deal in immigration, and you really understand the ins and outs of all of this, as does the rest of the panel. What do you make of this shift by the U.S. government in their approach to this case? Anastasia Sanat, president of the Haitian American Lawyers Association of Illinois.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for having me. Happy Mother's Day to all the listeners. I am actually curious as to understanding what facts they used in order to reclassify her as wrongfully detained. I think it's very interesting that before political back-channeling was put into place, right, and before they were able to reclassify her, information had to be received, and we're not receiving that. From the information that I've been able to read about, what I do know is that it took them this long. She was not initially considered one of those individuals that they were willing to exchange for. So when I think his name is Trevor Reed, is that correct? The
Yes,
one that
Trevor
was
Reed.
recently released from
Trevor
Russia?
Reed, yes, the American serviceman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The American serviceman, they released him. Yes, TV, but they released him in exchange for a drug dealer that they had here in the United States. Now, once the drug dealer served their time here in the United States, they obviously would have been deported to the United States and not able to return to the United States ever. So what Brittany Griner is facing are drug charges. And I wonder if the reclassification is because they wanted this particular drug dealer. The drug dealer was paying some kind of money to Vladimir Putin or to his allies. And so I wonder if that's where the reclassification came from. They stopped her. They knew she was a superstar, so to speak, right? And they wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to force the hand of the United States to exchange for this particular drug dealer. That's the only diplomatic reason I can think of right now in order to reclassify her as a wrongly detained. But other than that, I'm not sure why. I do know that she can't go back. Immigration-wise, I would not recommend it. And I would hope that she would know you could never go back to Russia.
Why can't she go back to Russia?
Well, once you've been arrested and detained for serious charges, especially those facing up to 10 years, even if they are dropped, you have to keep in mind that she's not one of those individuals that no one knows about. People do know about her. So they'll consistently be watching her and consistently be watching her habits. So the money that she was making in Russia in order to play basketball, which, can we talk about why she was even there? Because that's really important.
We have been talking about that. We've been talking about the fact that these basketball players have to work a second season. The women do, like women have to do in the rest of our lives, in order to make one salary. Because even when you add what she makes in Russia to what she makes with the WNBA, it doesn't match her status. I mean, but come on, Anastasia, who wants to go see a basketball game at 11:30 in the middle of the day during the week? The NBA and the WNBA have to get serious about promoting professional women's basketball. They're not serious about it.
Really do need to. I think the media needs to do a better job of at least having it available on TV. Like a lot of people are Cubs fans for so many years. All you could do on Channel 9 was watch the Cubs game. So in this situation, that's what they need to do. They need to just make sure that they put the schedule together for the summer so that people are watching these WNBA games and getting used to having these WNBA games so that women are not required to go to the top clubs, which are in Russia, which are in Turkey. Those are the top paying clubs right now. That's why she's there. That is the problem that we have. You're going across the seas to work because you're not making enough money in the United States of America. I just think that that's one of the reasons why she should not be doing that. She is popular. They just won the championship over there in Russia. I think that it's time for her to just not play ball over there.
Well, and it's time for her to make some money over here. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, now you have been involved in negotiations, these tough negotiations where you're trying to get people who you just say, my goodness, they'll never be released. You've worked with Reverend Jackson and others down for more than 30 years. When you saw that the U.S. Government, the Department of State, reclassified her as wrongfully detained, what were your thoughts? I mean, because I'd like to know how she, why she's been detained, who's representing her, are they able to interact with her? I mean, it's just because she has a hearing which was extended, right? May 19th. She should have had the hearing already, but it's been pushed to May 19th. And I'm wondering, because she is so high profile and she does mean so much, and they released as Trevor Reed, this American serviceman. It's almost as if they're kind of showing up America. You all don't really care about her. I mean, that's it's kind of sort of what they're saying. Remember, it was when they put Black protesters, who were children, in the 1960s, when they put these children who were being sprayed by hoses and bitten by dogs, they put those pictures on the cover of the Pravda, which was the official paper of Russia. It embarrassed America internationally, and we started moving with a swiftness. That happened, CK. We don't remember it happening, but we certainly have read about the history, and we've heard our parents talk about it. That it took, really, in many respects, the deaths of Viola Liuzzo and James Reeb and other white protesters who meant well and who were willing to sacrifice their lives and have their lives taken from them. But it was also when we got embarrassed by Russia that we were able to get more movement with civil rights. I mean, what is it with this reclassification? What is the reclassification and why now? And what do you think are the politics behind it, CK?
Well, good morning, Santita, and happy Mother's Day weekend to everyone. Santita, I thought from the beginning of the situation that your dad, the Reverend Jackson, should be engaged from the beginning. I always question, when I don't necessarily assume what I read is true. So when I saw these allegations against her, when I saw these charges against her, I corrected them and said, these are allegations. We don't know if they're true. We don't know what the context is. Mm-hmm. These charges were brought before, the war in Ukraine. But the war in Ukraine didn't just happen. It was imminent. And we've had this, so her detention, her arrest came at a very, very interesting time in politics. I don't agree that she would not be able to go back. She may choose not to go back. But everything involving her release is going to be negotiated. And I submit that everything involving her release was being negotiated from the inception. I don't know that I believe. So she was wrongfully charged. That to me also means in an international context, perhaps the charges were not legitimate charges. So there's so much we don't know. I don't assume that those charges were legitimate. Perhaps they were not legitimate. We are in a world war mess, and the United States and Russia are the ones that are manipulating, if you will, the players in this war in the Ukraine. So I think that she's caught in that quagmire. She's caught in the middle of that. I still don't necessarily believe she was properly charged. Now, let me just say that the reason why I thought from the beginning Reverend Jackson should be involved, you're right, Cynthia. I've worked on at least 2 cases where we were able to, with your dad, free 2 American citizens that were incarcerated. One in Algiers, a woman, an anthropologist out of Atlanta, and another, a man out of Macedonia. And a lot of times, diplomatic solutions drag on or are not fruitful. They just are not fruitful. And so what is required, in my impression, is someone who has international prominence, such as your father, international prominence, a faith leader, and someone who has galvanized the goodwill internationally when people trust and believe in what he says and what he's doing and feel that he is a peacemaker. And that, I believe, is what it would require to get Brittany out. That type of intervention. Because the diplomatic channel has failed. That's basic. She's been incarcerated for 75 days. Detained is incarcerated the rest of the Spain for 75 days in a foreign country. And there are suspicions about whether those charges were legitimate in the first place. So that's how I see this, Santita. I think I feel for her family. The underlying, we will never really know the underlying circumstances of what really is, what isn't, because her solution is going to be a diplomatic one. She's going to be part of a negotiation of how we address this war.
Wow. Let's talk about it, everybody, because you do bring up a point, Attorney Hoffler, that it really does come down to trusted entities. People have to trust you and your intentions when you're trying to negotiate the release of a Brittany Griner or a Robert Goodman, and on and on and on and on and on it goes. So the 3 soldiers in Kosovo. I mean, people have to trust your intentions. And it might take something like that, but it's certainly it's interesting to watch the State Department, let's just say reconfigure their strategy. But will it work? And I'd like to know who's representing her. I mean, as you said, it's going to take a little bit more than her lawyers to get her free, because now we're at war with Russia. This is a little bit bigger. This is a heavier lift than many of us know. They've already moved her hearing over by more than a month. So when and how can we get Brittany Griner home? What are the charges? And can she be freed on humanitarian grounds? I mean, if you make a mistake, whatever it is. I mean, let's talk about it. 773-763-9278. Attorney Daryl Jones, can't wait to hear from you on the other side on the Santita Jackson Show. Mother's Day for Peace, everybody. Back in just a minute. Oh, you know what, CK? You just said something that because I remember when Reverend negotiated the release of the 3 soldiers in Kosovo. One of my dear friends called me. I got a lot of phone calls, but one of these calls that stood out was from a friend of mine who said, he said, Santita, what did he say to them? Now, mind you, I'm watching this live on TV just like you are. So, I mean, someone called me and said, congratulations. I'm like, congratulate me. I didn't do anything. He said, no. Your father just got these 3 soldiers released. I was like, are you serious? Okay. So that was a great thing. Hey, Freddie Martinez, how you doing? And Maddie again, and Joyce and Dave Dowling and Francis and D-Ray. Hey, girl, and Effie. D-Ray, no, I'm not. My mother doesn't want a cookout. She's, my mother's she marches to her own beat. And CK, you know this better than anybody. She said, now I want you to come over on Sunday and I want you to work in my garden with me. Oh, okay. So I've got to figure out what to wear. Now, I don't have any gardening clothes, CK. So I'm going to have to figure this out and figure out the right shoes. But that's what she said she wanted from her daughter for. I've got to fool around in the dirt with the worms and whatnot. But that's what she wants for,
That is marvelous.
Okay, CK. You won't be in the dirt, but that's all right. I'm not mad at you.
I will not be in the dirt, but I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah.
Because I love you.
I am, girl. I can't wait to see you. So I can shake you right now. Like, what? She said, now, I know you don't have anything to wear. I'm like, my mother's going to dress creatively herself, but I'm going to figure it out. I won't be. I really don't even know. I don't have any shoes for it. I mean, I don't want to wear my athletic shoes, but whatever. I'm going to figure it out because that's what my mother wants. But D-Ray, my mother she doesn't want things like that because her thing is Mother's Day is every day. Okay. Said, don't do anything for me that you wouldn't do any other day. Okay. Honor me every day. She's serious about that. On my birthday, my father sends me flowers. My mother says, you need to send flowers to me. How about that piece, everybody? Told you, she marches to her own beat. But that's all right. That's my mama. I love her. So, everybody, and that's right. And I'm very excited about Ariel Capital stepping on as a sponsor for this show. Can't wait to have them on so we can talk about investing, CK, particularly at this time, um, because we kind of traded in pension funds um, for 401ks. We kind of privatized the pension system, which is interesting. And now with the
1 minute.
thank you so much, Paul. Thank you, Paul, for a great show. Now, because of the craziness of the stock market, many of us are wondering, what is going to happen with our retirement funds. I mean, with the Dow loses 1,000 points yesterday, it went up on 900 the day before. It went down more than 1,000 yesterday. What is up? Not the stocks. Thank you, Effie. I love my mom too. I have a lot of fun when we're talking about her because she is what? My mother. People are always shocked, CK, when they meet her. They're like, wow, she's like a force of nature. I'm like, I don't know how you think my father could be married to someone who's going to sit up in a corner. A man like him could never make it if he didn't have a road warrior he was married to. What? Come on now. So, there we go.
Here we go, coming back in 5 seconds.
All righty.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. We're talking about Brittany Griner. I wonder what you think about this case. The U.S. has reclassified her case, and they have said that she is wrongfully detained. What does that mean? Can't wait to talk with Attorney Daryl Jones and Attorney Anastasia Sanat, and of course Attorney C.K. Hoffler about this, what this means, and what is the path forward? What is the way? What's the path to freedom for Brittany Griner? What is it? What is it? Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. And before we bring up Chapearl to talk about celebrations by us and all this wonderful food that she makes that Daryl says he's going to eat, but he doesn't look like he eats any carbs at all, but that's all right. But we're going to get some great food from Chapearl at Celebrations by Us. But before we do, I hope that you will join us at our international conference, June 18th through 22nd. Of course, that is the Rainbow Push Coalition Conference. It'll be on the south side of Chicago this year at the South Shore Cultural Center, June 18th through the 22nd. Going to show you how to tap into some new markets, some new ways for you to make money. With more than 11 million Americans who have left their jobs over the past year, I think you're looking for another way, and we plan to show you that way at the convention. But we're going to have the Tommies, of course, and we're going to have looking at honoring Abe Bolden and talking about the JFK assassination, and we plan to do a whole lot of things. It's going to be a really, 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 really interesting convention, June 18th. Through the 22nd. Please meet us there. Go to rainbowpush.org, so that we can hear from you. Go on and get registered for this conference, everybody. All my morning stars, please do that. Please, please, please. Hey, Jewel. Everybody. Let me see. Is Chapearl up, Paul?
Yes, I'm here, Santita.
All right now. Celebrations by Us. Remember, you've got CK, Anastasia, and Daryl. Daryl still hasn't gotten his biscuits from you, and he's very upset, and he's a little moody this morning, growling. Come on.
Daryl, when you come to Chicago, if you come for the conference, I promise, CK, everybody, I'm going to have a spread for you guys. I promise. Listen, at Celebrations by Us, this is your one-stop party connection, and right now we are gearing up for prom, graduation, and wedding season. So right now we're doing your custom name tables, as well as also your custom balloon arches, custom treats, as well as also your sweet table and your hors d'oeuvres. So don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546, 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you. Thank you so much.
You know what? Hold on. Before you go, I know you've had a lot of feelings. You have sent me a lot of messages about the Brittany Griner case. What is it about this case that moves you so?
Santita, to be frank, I mean, I am moved by this particular case because she's a black woman in a foreign country. You know, and I just think that, you know, black women in general do not get highlighted when we go through trauma and when we're having issues. And it's like the world has forgotten about her. And we have seen very little as far as the media taking on this case to apply pressure to even our government or even the Russian government. I do understand that this is a political ploy, that Russia is probably using her as a bargaining chip to get what they want. I understand about the war, but this is a human life. She's a real person. She has a family. She has a wife. You know, she is going through it. And we don't know what exactly her condition is. Mm-hmm. I think that is probably the thing that bothers me the most about her case, is that limited information is being given about her and her safety and her well-being. And, you know, I'm wondering how she's being treated. And, you know, and these are the things that, you know, we're not getting from the media. And because she is a black woman, no one is really focused on it. And that bothers me greatly.
Okay. You know, there are studies that shows that black women are invisible. But that having been said, we have to also work with people as we travel around the world, CK, before we get to Attorney Jones. You have to know that when you travel, just because you are a U.S. citizen, it does not mean that you have carte blanche anymore. That number one. And you got to be clear that you need to be clear on the substances that you can and cannot have. And these are just according to the press reports on why she was detained in the first place, because you can become a pawn, but you might not start off that way. And so when you are living or working and living overseas, you have to know that you are in the crosshairs and you need to do whatever you can to stay safe, CK. I mean, I think that's part of it, because these things can snowball, you know, but, you know, I guess presumably if she had not had this illegal substance, they would have let her through. And when you're living in a time where your country and this country are at odds with each other, you really have to be careful. I'm not shaming and blaming. I'm just saying we have to real politics, CK, before we go to Attorney Jones. Oh, CK, are you there? Well, you know, let me go to you, Attorney Jones. I mean, just the politics of traveling around the world is something I think that we really need to watch.
Yes, Santita, you're 100% on the mark. You certainly have to be sort of a special level of cognizance of understanding where you are. Now, in Brittany Griner's case, you know, what we have is, you know, obviously, you know, and Vladimir Putin, a person who is racist and is a homophobe, and so she, and you know, is probably misogynist, and we add to that now this black gay woman that he has in his crosshairs. And so, you know, he's going to treat her differently than he would treat other folks that he would have that comes into his view and into his circle. But I think that one of the interesting things with the Brittany Griner case is not simply, you know, that trifecta that she has with who she is and then being in Russia as anti-everything as it is. But in addition to that, you know, we had it in this, and someone was comparing it to the Marine Trevor Reed. And of course, you know, one of the differences with the Trevor Reed situation is that Trevor Reed, you know, for whatever purpose, was tried and convicted and was serving a sentence in Russia at the time that his release was negotiated. Here with Brittany Griner, we don't know what the charges are going to be, and they continue to punt it, right? Because we should know right now who's representing her, you know, and what specific charges are there. But they punted it now to May the 19th, and there's no saying that they will not punt it and postpone it again in order to, you know, continue to hold her. So there are a lot of concerns that are there. one of the brighter points, I think, or if you will, to come up from the Griner case, however, is that switch from it being simply monitored by the counselor's office, where they're just sort of watching the proceeding and being certain that she's being treated fairly, to now being moved up, her position being moved up to that of a person that is lawfully detained, which allows the State Department to begin the interaction and to get in there. And although we don't know the attorney that either is going to be appointed or hired, or however they do it in Russia, for Brittany Griner, we do know from reports that Bill Richardson, the former congressman, is the international hostage negotiator, and that he's going to be involved in Brittany Griner's case now. So that's huge. In addition to that, we're now able to go ahead and put all the public pressure out there and then try to have her name circulated and talked about more openly. So with the WNBA, for instance, on all of their basketball courts, they're going to have the BG logo there, just trying to continue to lift up Brittany Griner in the public face as the public figure. And so it's a really interesting point of where we are. And the question right now is, how much effort are we going to put into it? How much effort will the government put into it? I'm hoping that it will be a great deal of effort, and it's going to be incumbent upon all of us to continue to certainly put her name out there and to lift her up, to be recognized, to try to force some action to occur, not to allow our government to sit back and sort of wait it out and see what's going to happen and see if she gets convicted and if there's a number of years that she's put into a Russian prison. So there's a lot that's going on right now. I'm extremely concerned for Brittany Griner and the family, because she really is in the middle of this crosshairs between the quiet war, if you will, between the U.S. and Russia, which is taking place in Ukraine, and all the other shenanigans that are going internationally with regards to the U.S. and Russia. So it's a very precarious position that she's in, and certainly I'm extremely concerned for her.
Well, and I think that we need to really be very clear on Russia. I mean, Russia, when it was communist, they were officially a state without church. And they were not without church because they were godless, but they felt that the church interfered in ways that were unhealthy, that supported the monarchy, right? And so that's why we have the separation of church and state codified in our founding documents, because we didn't want that, because the church is that powerful. It's always a counterweight to government. That having been said, now Russia, it's not a country full of homophobes, with all due respect. It is an Orthodox Christian nation. It's an Orthodox Christian nation. And so a lot of the liberalism of the West, the embracing of the LGBTQ plus community and on and on and on, or not community, but the lifestyle, that doesn't wash over there. So I think we need to be very clear on the culture and appreciate that so that we can negotiate with them within that context, because there's context for everything. Many peoples around the world feel that America is just a little bit too free. So just let's be clear on that, because the negotiation for her release is going to have to happen in that context, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 9278 773 763 9278. I want to know what your thoughts are. And Attorney Sanat, this is a little tough. I mean, because we have political issues coming here, but does anyone know what the charges are? Why she's been detained? I mean, do we know anything? I mean, because you work in this international space. I mean, do we know anything?
Well, so according to the articles that we read, because obviously I'm not there and I'm not part of the team, she was arrested for having vape cartridges of hashish oil. And in Russia, cannabis, recreational or medicinal, is just illegal. However, their laws kind of contradict. From what I've been able to read in my research, possession of up to 6 grams or 2 grams of hashish is an administrative offense, punishable by a fine or a detention of 15 days. So possession of a larger amount is considered criminal. Now, my question is, they've never told us the amount. They've never told us, anything, really, other than they were vape cartridges with hashish oil. And I'm not a vapor or what have you, but I've seen these vape cartridges. And my thought is, because you can't even take a plane with more than 3 ounces, how is it possible that she is facing criminal charges when it should likely be an administrative offense? And she should have been out within 15 days as opposed to the now 76 days that she's currently in. And to Attorney Jones' point about who's fighting on her behalf, we don't necessarily know her attorneys on the ground, but we do know that her agent, her representative here in the United States, her sports agent, Lindsay Kagawa Kolas, has made an op-ed with the LA Times indicating not only that it's troublesome that she's there, but there are people behind the scenes. And why she hasn't been in the news has been because they've been asked not to vocalize it, not to make her one of those flowers that need to be picked. And she reminds us in her article with the LA Times that first and foremost, there are things that we are not recognizing are at play besides the fact that she's a Black woman. She is part of the LGBTQ plus community, but she's married and she has twin daughters with health issues. So when we think about, had Brittany been a man married to a woman with twin daughters with health issues, she wouldn't have been detained for 76 days. She likely would have been out. What Western standards of beauty have done to the WNBA with respect to endorsements, deals, commercial space, things like that, is what leads all of these WNBA players overseas to make money. Why is it that minimum league salary for the WNBA is somewhere like $50,000, but the NBA minimum league salary is somewhere at $925,000? The disparity is ridiculous. And I think that those are the issues that we need to be concerned with. Why is it that she wasn't talked about? Well, her inner circle was asked not to, first and foremost. Second of all, why is she over there? Because of the disparity in pay. Third, why is this such a difficult situation? Well, it's difficult because she's not the typical Black woman. And I wonder if that is why the new press secretary for the Biden administration is about to be a Black woman who's also a lesbian. And her name is Karine Jean-Pierre, also of Haitian descent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that all of these issues are playing in some way. There's some kind of international issues that are going on that need to be discussed. Unfortunately, we don't know because we're getting the same media that most people are getting.
And of course, we congratulate Karine Jean-Pierre for this historic appointment of her. She's the first African-American, the first Black press secretary, White House press secretary. And of course, it has been reported her partner is Suzanne Malveaux from CNN, and they have an 8-year-old daughter. Congratulations to all of them. Something we're going to have to talk about because a lot of people are now talking today. They're like, wow, is this a conflict of interest? Let's celebrate the moment. Just do that because she is eminently qualified to be in that position. And we'll just see how this is worked out as we go forward. That having been said, I mean, CK, where do we go from here? Because you do have a lot of elements at play here, But you made the point that the negotiators need to be trusted and their motives need to be trusted. I mean, the people who told Brittany Griner's team to be quiet, they should have been back channeling people. See, I don't know why folks don't understand. Okay, you were told to be quiet. I don't know who told you to do that. But then you need to talk to people who've been in this space. Someone should reach out to Reverend Jackson and other people who negotiate, CK, and say, okay, I've been told this. What do you think I need to do? Okay. It's just, you know what I mean?
And because let me just tell you something. Whatever they've been doing has failed.
How about
Let's just
that?
put that out there. It has
How
failed
about that?
miserably.
How about
It has
that?
been-
Oh,
and it seems like it's getting worse. Because quite frankly, if these charges, she was wrongfully accused, that's not something that we should be finding out 75 days later.
no.
That is some information that we should have known in the earlier. So I believe the next path is to get your father, Reverend Jesse Jackson, engaged in this negotiation. Because there's so many, he is respected internationally for his work in this space and for the results that the U.S. government has failed. And so there's no reason why we can't all be one team and operate on the same page. Because from one faith leader to another, and an Orthodox Christian country, that may mean something, especially given that we are at war and are playing and are at odds in a very, very significant way in this country where she's being held. She's an African-American woman. She's a WNBA star. She's from the LGBTQ plus community. All those things, your father has worked in those spaces. He, in my impression, is the only person who can bring her home. The only one who can bring her home. So if you want and of course I'm biased, because I've been there in those spaces with him, up against the wall. Nobody thought he could do it, and he's done it. It's his voice. It's the capital, the political, the religious, the good faith capital that he's built over the course of 60 years that enables him to do that in very hostile situations. This would not be the first hostile situation that he has been involved in. He did work in Cuba to bring back hostages there too. So I think that there is much to be said, much to be done. I hope the family does reach out to him because he can't just, engage. He has to be, and I think that it's probably imminent, and if not, it should be imminent. But that's what I think the solution is, Santita, because everything else has failed.
Well, you know what? I think we need to continue to pray for Brittany and really try to move the needle forward on this. I want to read to you the Mother's Day Proclamation for Peace, but I want to give attorneys Jones and Sanat 30 seconds because it's a little lengthy, but I think it's something that people need to hear today. Your closing thoughts. Attorney Sanat, 30 seconds. Then Attorney Jones, 30 seconds.
Thank you, Santita. Santita, I think that CK hit it right out of the park. We absolutely need to continue to lift up Brittany Griner, to keep her on the front of everyone's mind in terms of what's happening, and to monitor and push. Hopefully, the family will reach out to Reverend and get the Reverend involved as well. So I look forward to working however we can to continue to keep Brittany Griner and her family lifted up in our prayers and thoughts in the forefront of our minds.
Amen to that. You know what, Attorney Sanat, I'm going to have you back, but this is what I wanted to leave people with today. Mother's Day for Peace. This was started by Julia Ward Howe in 1870. She wrote the lyrics to the Star-Spangled Banner. She was a suffragist. She was an abolitionist. She was a human rights champion. And she wrote this proclamation, she said, to promote the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general questions of peace. This was right after the Civil War, where we lost hundreds of thousands of people, where mothers of Union and rebel soldiers cared for Union and rebel injured and dying men and boys, because they said, I hope that some mother on the other side is taking care of my son. Arise, she wrote, then women of this day, arise all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor. nor violence vindicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them first meet as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own kind the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that a general Congress of women, without limit of nationality, may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient, and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general questions of peace. Women, we can do it. And we should do it in the name of Julia Ward Howe and Sojourner Truth and Fannie Lou Hamer and Gloria Steinem, who's with us today, and Elizabeth Warren and Barbara Jordan and Shirley Chisholm and so many women, Viola Liuzzo, so many women, Coretta Scott King, Betty Shabazz, who have fought for peace. Let us fight for peace. Let us fight for peace. And let us fight to bring Brittany Griner home. But let us fight for peace. All of it. All day. Every day. To the great mom, C.K. Hoffler, I don't know how you do it all. God bless you. Happy Mother's Day. Attorney Sanat, are you a mother yet? One day? God bless you. God bless you. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. And it may be a Mother's Day of peace and a Mother's Day for and toward peace, everybody. I love you. God bless you. Happy Mother's Day. I love you all. God bless you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry, I put it on mute.
No, honey, the most brilliant comments are on mute. But but I wanted to get in, pardon me, this Mother's Day for Peace message. I wanted to get it in before we got out of here today. Because I think it's so important that we begin to get there. How about that? You know.
Well, good luck, and happy Mother's Day to you too.
Well, thank you. Although I have no children, let us not start any rumors. Hello. I don't have any.
We have nieces and nephews. Are you not a godmother? Same thing.
I got you, girl. I was just having fun. Someone sent me a message. Girl, I didn't know you had a baby. I'm like, no, darling. No.
Well, I
No.
just want a happy Mother's Day. Santita, I want pictures of you in the garden.
You know what? You are not funny. Wait, when are you coming back to Chicago? I'm like, wait a minute. What? Honey, I want pictures of me in the garden. How about that? I'm like, what? I was like, she said, I know you don't have any clothes. I said, so why would you ask me to do that then? I said, but I'll be there with you on Mother's Day. And let's pray for rain. How about that? And my mother will go out there in the mud. Oh, this is going to be wonderful. I will be so hot. But that's what she said she wanted me to do. I think it's a bit of a joke. But I'm going to be there with her for Mother's Day, digging in the dirt. But guess what? That's where our food comes from. How about that? And my mother grows watermelons and greens and onions and tomatoes. She has I think she's going to turn the whole yard into a garden, into farm country. I think that's what she's going to do. CK, I'm going to send you, and I'm going to send all of you this Texas GOP governor is considering challenging the 82 ruling requiring free public education.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm going to send that. Yeah. Because I want to talk about that because that goes right to the heart of Jesse, then Congressman Jackson's education amendment. And so I want all of you to be alerted to that because I want to talk about that next week because they're going to start with the children of undocumented workers. And then you're going to start having means testing for kids. And that's going to bleed into everybody. And that's going to be a problem because remember, you know, having everybody vote, having everybody get education, having everybody be free in America was not the original intention of the founding fathers.
But, or having a woman have control over her body.
How about that?
So, you know, all of these things, Santita. I want to also say Happy Mother's Day, Anastasia, and to all the mothers out there. This is such a special weekend, and I hope that we do move closer to peace. And wouldn't it be wonderful for Brittany to be released this weekend?
Wouldn't it be?
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Wouldn't it be? I mean, I'm just praying for that young lady, praying for her. And I'm so glad that we were able to talk about her case today. And, you know, thank you all for your brilliant analyses because wouldn't be able to make it without you. I love y'all. And I love all of you, everybody here. You all want to say something to the Morning Stars? Hey, Lorraine. Yes, I'm going to be in the garden, Lorraine. And I will take a picture, Janae. I'll take a picture, you all. I don't know what I'm wearing. I just have to, like, what kind of, you know what? I have some shoes I can wear in the garden. I sure do. Yeah. Some rubber. Yeah, Crocs. I have some Crocs. I bought them when my feet were hurting in Atlanta, CK. Yes, I did. I bought them in Atlanta, girl. I had gone to some event the night before, and my feet were throbbing the next day. And my girlfriend took me to, I think, Payless when it was still in. And I got some Crocs, red Crocs. I'll wear those. I'll probably wear red too, you all. Or I have some cute overalls. You know, I love that. I'm not gonna lie. I love. You know, this song. What is it, the Flower Drum song by by Rodgers and Hammerstein? I love being a girl. I love doing my thing, and I'm gonna do it until I get out of here. How about that? I love makeup. I love it all. Hunter boots. They would be cute, but I don't know if I can find any in time. Because I'm not going to do all this shopping and whatnot. But if I come in there too overdressed, my mother's going to give me a fit, and it's not going to be a pleasant Mother's Day for me. Okay. if I come in like real dressed up, maybe I'll get hunter boots, but my Crocs will do just fine. But the hunter boots, that would be great. Let me see if I can find some today. Because my Crocs have little holes in them, and I don't want the dirt getting in my feet. Yes, I said it. Okay. I don't care. I don't want that. And then she'll pull out the hose and she'll spray my feet. I'd be like, But you know what? My mother was like a germaphobe, and she was someone who was like really, really, she's into personal hygiene. So I don't know how she expected me not to be this way. I'm like, what? You know, I'm like, I don't know what you were expecting. Oh, I just think you're just a little over the top, right? Okay, whatever. If I were not over the top, she would be very upset. I don't know where I failed you. And see, with these girls, you can't make these mistakes. Because I hear that from her all the time. Everything that I didn't do, that shows up. Your brothers, that's one thing. For you, cross those legs at that ankle. I'm like, okay. You know, but every time I left the house, my mother's admonition was always, remember, be a young lady. Remember when mothers used to tell you that? Remember to be a young lady. We got to get back to that. That's another something. But I'm inspired by Julia Ward Howe. I think we need to have a women's conference, you guys. I really do. Where we just as women tap into our real strength, and make real change in this world. We can do it. I know we can. But I love you all. So do you all want to say anything to the Morning Stars before we go? Okay, are you on mute? Okay, never mind. I love you all. I love you, everybody. All right. Have a great holiday. Thank you, Paul, for a wonderful show. God bless you. And Paul's got a whole lot of kids. Happy Mother's Day to your wife. God bless you. God bless you. I love you, everybody. See you Sunday on Keep Hope Alive. Love you. Bye-bye.